going to explain you why a four-dimensional roadmap. The source of information for this roadmap is analysis of the field survey, experiences of other countries, description of the current system, its evaluation, and a consultant or a discussion with the experts of the industry, industrial sector, and the TAVET. And it sets the base for the trends, the key trends that are necessary to achieve the paradigm shift and the improvement of the whole system. This slide is very important. The basics on which the roadmap is based. And I'm talking to the Ministry of Manpower and Ministry of Education and TVET. The first point, the weaknesses could not be considered negatively, but they could be an opportunity for investment. It's not about criticizing the system, but identifying the areas for improvement. As long as we have areas for improvement, so means that we're going to have new investments, intervention from the private sector, from foreign entities. Second thing, support or enhance the weak performance according to the just policies principle. Those who need something, they can take it. There's sectors that need high dose of something, so, and others who do not need that much. So we have to take it to satisfy the needs according to its size. Those who are weak, we give them what they need, and those who are excellent, we can motivate them so that they can continue and be role models. We have to focus on policies on a certain sector. This does not mean that we are neglecting the other sectors, and this is important because we might mention or focus on some sectors because they need more. So this does not mean that we are neglecting others. Working in parallel on short-term policies and long-term policies. But the short-term policies do not have to cause harms on the long term. And this is one of our problems. Sometimes we take quick actions, and these quick actions can take us in a wrong direction. Benefiting from the other countries' experiences and not reinventing the wheels, and do not consider Egypt as a special and different case because competitiveness standards apply on everybody. So Egypt is not different from that. So we cannot describe it as all the time that we have special needs. We have only some problems that should be tackled so that we can develop. Last point, and we have to remember this point, labor demand is not random. It's based on the goods demand. If we have a factory that produces products, if these products are sold in the market, so the factory is going to need jobs, and this is going to be sustainable. If they do not sell the products, the employees are going to be dismissed. So labor's demand is derived demand based on the goods, and thus any problem that has to do with the laborers and workers, this cannot be tackled in separation with investment, the infrastructure, development of the logistics, innovation system, property, intellectual property protection. Separating between all these aspects is something wrong. The 4 dimensions, the institutional dimension is like the car engine. And the size dimension, the 4 wheels of the car, geographic dimension, and the sectorial dimension. The car has to have these 4 dimensions: an engine, wheels, body, and everything. So the map, the 4 dimensions of the map of these things. What about the engine, the institutional dimension? It's the most important dimension, undoubtedly, and it leads to the future trends of the industrial facilities or businesses. They tend to traditional things, increase production throughout 5 years. There's nothing innovative. There's nothing about new products. Introducing new technologies. This is why, because the system is weak. The third reason, fixing the institutional dimension leads take us to the improving the image. If we fix the engine, everything is going to be fixed by default. The institutional dimension has sub-dimensions. Clear future vision for the state. And I'm here not talking about 2030. I'm just talking about to have clear where we are heading. A clear investment plan to enhance the investment opportunities of the state. Where are my investment opportunities? How to link myself to international value chains? When I find investment opportunities, so there's something worth of production, and thus I can produce and have real job opportunities. The third thing, a clear role to be played by the private sector in a competitive, just environment, and each and every word has a clear meaning. A clear role played by the private sector, not variable, not talking only, and with a non-centralized implementation process.
So these are some institutional reform. Now let's move to specifics. TEVIT. As Rama said, we should have good governance on different levels. Top-bottom approach. We should rectify the mental image. We should stop the stigma. Remember the pictures I showed from Singapore. Stopping the stigma means people should be paid decently. Third, we should have a dynamic information system for supply and demand in the labor market. We don't have the CS CAPMAS has some studies and some figures, but to what extent are these studies taken into consideration by the Ministry of Manpower? And do we update these studies, and are they made public? Also, financial sustainability is key. There are other details here. For example, training system. We should engage the private sector in the broader sense. The private sector is the demand side, and without engaging the private sector, we will not move forward. We should change the system on the ground in order to change the perception, to change the negative impressions employers have. Because whenever they employ workers, they start training them as if they were never trained, while they were already trained by the state, for example. So, third, designing an incentive system to engage educational and the training institutes, starting from planning and up to implementation. We should give them tax incentives or any other kind of incentives. We should also evaluate the training given by the state in line with the needs assessment study. I think Dr. Ala referred to that. Yes, this is an ocean, a drop of the ocean. We covered only 516 institutions, but all the institutions nationwide need that. We should assess the impact of dual education before scaling up this project. So, for example, we also need to identify the number of training centers. What is the nature of programs that should be introduced? How to train trainers? We should have specifications for training centers, and we should have an M&E mechanism, one that is internal and other is external, because we cannot design, plan, assess, evaluate, and clap for ourselves. Now we need to start from up to down. Should have a top bottom approach. We showed this graph before when it comes to population and when it comes to handicraft, because it's based on a set of basics. First of all, one should plan and another should execute. This is key. That's why we should have a national council for training and TEVET affiliated to the Prime Minister. Why? Because this task is not only the Ministry of Education or the Ministries of Manpower or the Ministry of Industry. No, it should be a lean organization. What do I mean by that? It should have a board and representing all the horizontal ministers which are not directly working in TEVET, like the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Planning, for example, and this body should also include experts and people from the industry. Of course, this body should have a technical committee. The board convenes and designs plans. So they design plans, but they don't design programs of action. So these blueprints should be translated into action programs, for example. Of course, the decisions of this entity should be binding. This technical body should be responsible for the database on the labor market. Remember the dynamic information system I referred to earlier? This council should design plans, but who implements program? The executive organ, including the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Manpower, the Ministry of Higher Education, and other bodies like the National Academy for Training. All these bodies should implement with the civil society organizations, banks, federations, syndicates, NGOs, civil society organizations. So everyone is working because it's a binding measure. How can we evaluate this? In line with KPIs that is set by the council. So the council sets the KPIs, but CapMass should evaluate the result on the ground to measure or to evaluate, to come up with a report. We should also include experts. By experts, I mean people working in academia, in research institutes. So planning is separated from execution. We also have a monitoring plan and a regulatory role played by the Parliament and the President. Among the implementing partners, we have governance rates. And of course, you have arrows going from down to up. So it's a bottom-up approach when it comes to data. This system takes into consideration good governance, and we also need this in the populations fund, which is affiliated to the Ministry of Health, and that shouldn't be the case. When it comes to the size, remember Sahar's presentation. We can come up with certain proposal. We can design employability plans in line with the size of institutions. Big companies can observe ICT. That's why we need to engage them. SMEs should be targeted through the incentive policies. We shouldn't use SMEs as one term. We should use small enterprises as one category and medium enterprises as another category. We should also we should promote export. We should change the stigma impacting small enterprises. I don't have model answers for everything, but these are the highlights. What are the policies? For example, we need to solve the problems of big enterprises and SMEs when it comes to refunding this through the Ministry of Finance, because they need money in order to retain the employees. So they have money on paper, but they don't have cash to cover that. Also implementing the CBE when it comes to the working capital, because small companies don't have enough money. There is an initiative to target that. We should revise all the decrees that has to do with exporting, but they are concerned with direct exporters and not subcontractors. So we need to revise that. We need to revive exporting councils for small scale exporters. They need to have enough data, they need to have collective exporting, they need to be able to work in groups. We should also target the participation of SMEs in dual education programs in line with quality controls. We should have incentives for training institutes. We should represent big companies and SMEs when it comes to curricula modernization from an institutional point of view. All of these measures are based on the survey results. The geographical dimension is very important. I cannot stress that enough. We need to stop the stigma of Upper Egypt, or the image of Upper Egypt as a poor place attracting donations and aid. This is a window of opportunity, and this is proved through the future trends. So we need to complete the infrastructure and to complete the port of Safaga, because the people in Upper Egypt need to go to Alexandria or Damietta. We also need to reconsider the measures and the timeline of import and export processes. We need to have a paradigm shift and to change our mentality. We need to focus on Alexandria, because there is a creative dimension to Alexandria, and it's a winning card. We should also study the future trends and study the reasons for the low demand on labor in Cairo and Delta. Another thing to be taken into consideration, so targeting recruiters and training, implementing special training programs for graduates in Alexandria in line with the unconventional trends in Alexandria, increasing the number of technical education in Delta, or providing incentives for institutions, and implementing dual schools in Upper Egypt, Alexandria. So, sectorial dimension, solving the problems of pharmaceuticals, because it's a very promising sector. It's crystal clear that it's a very promising sector, and it can grow. They work with other industries and sectors, improving the exporting capability for the printing sector, and the printing sector needs to include ICT. We also need to reconsider the priorities of the state, like construction material, leather, and furniture. Despite the fact that we have a track record of these industries. For example, we have very good furniture in Damietta. We should also study the perception, the negative perception or the negative projections of certain sectors. They are a bit pessimistic, if I may say. We should set development strategies for certain sectors with sectors like pharmaceuticals. We should also reform technology centers. The main objective is to promote technology for certain sectors. This should be done in line with IP, for example, and shouldn't replicate the role of private sector. We should find solutions for the sectors of ready-made garments, food processing, because they do not have exporting trends in the future. So they do export now, but they are a bit pessimistic about the future. We need to focus on finding skilled labor. I think we heard that 10 times at least. We should provide advanced trainings, and we should motivate companies to give advanced trainings rather than the basic trainings given by the state. Otherwise, we are squandering our limited resources. We should reduce the number of foreign labor. So, for example, in ready-made garment, maintenance is not given due consideration. So machines are not repaired or are not checked. As for foreign labor, we complain that some people employ foreign labor. Why? Because they are committed, they are disciplined, they have a culture of work. We should also include non-technical skills, and Dr. Hussam said that we should revive the Industrial Training Center, because it was the only authority to give tailored training. We need to scale the ZEFTA project. People complain that the residential areas are far from factories, and we had an initiative in Kaliubeya to make sure that factories are close to the villages, as if it's a kind of outsourcing with a very high productivity. Here we have a new cluster for businessmen. We have employment opportunities for females. Concluding remarks. Most of the problems arise from overlapping roles and competencies. The state role is not clear, so despite the effort exerted, these efforts are not effective. The private sector is supporting lots of schools, but not in a systematic manner. We work in silos, even incentives are fragmented. We need to have a holistic and comprehensive approach and view, taking into consideration all the elements. The policies are not stable or sustainable. So once again, if we want the car to run, then we need to have the 4 dimensions together. We cannot reform and develop a pivot system without taking into consideration the 4 dimensions. Thank you so much.